down. Your name is?
Nikita Yadav.
You want some coffee?
No, no, thank you.
Nikita Yadav.
Yes.
And you are a graduate in economics.
Yes,
The
sir.
Delhi School of
from Sri College of Commerce, University of Delhi.
I did
And,
my master's
From the Delhi School of Economics.
yeah. And you have taken these exams 3 times, is it? This is your
Fourth attempt, sir.
fourth attempt. And have you received a call for interview before this?
Yes, sir.
Once, I see.
Yes,
In
sir.
2018.
Yes, sir.
Last year?
Yes, sir.
2018. So, what was your score
Sir, in the interview.
in the interview?
So 168.
138.
68.
168.
Out of 275.
Yes, ma'am.
And why do you feel, what was the shortcoming in your interview which got you, which cost you marks?
Sir, one thing that I could analyze was that I got really nervous while speaking, and because of that, my speed got really fast.
Very fast.
Yes, sir. Because the chairman even told me that why do you seem so nervous? So I think that was one mistake that I made there.
What question did they ask? Just give any one question they asked.
What question was it that made you nervous?
Yeah.
What was it that made you nervous?
Give us an idea then.
Well, the question per se was not the issue. I feel I was just nervous
So
in
what
general.
was the question in any case?
Questions were mostly related to economics. For example, they asked me about why the global financial crisis happened, or why did India not get affected because of that. And then, something related to WTO.
Okay. So that was you were comfortable with the questions.
Yes, ma'am. I was more or less comfortable with the questions.
So that's lucky that they asked you
Yes.
questions.
Now, you have, you're working anywhere?
No, sir.
The order of preference in services, you placed the IAS at number 1, followed by the IPS, and then by the foreign service.
Yes, sir.
I see. So, my questions therefore to you are 2. The first question is, why do you want to join government service? You have acquired good degrees and you've done well in economics, and as an economist you can pursue more lucrative careers in the academic profession or in the business profession. Why is it that you would like to join the civil services, number 1? What is it about the civil services that attracts you? That's the number 1. Number 2, the second question is, in the civil services, why this sequence? That means why the Indian administrative service first, followed by the police, and followed by the foreign service? Do you not think, that has 2 parts to this question. First, this, which I put to you. The second part is, that do you not think that with your qualifications, you would be better suited to a service like the foreign service rather than the police service? So, these are 2 questions.
So, for the first question, sir, throughout my college life, I was very active in the civil service cell of the college, and that was a very fulfilling experience for me. And through that experience, it gave me this direction that I want a career in a field where I'm able to bring some change on the ground, especially for those who come from marginalized sections and economically weaker sections of the society. Because for me, sir, the idea of India is a country where every single citizen is empowered and everyone has the capability to achieve his or her full potential. and I feel that civil services they provide me the best platform to contribute to that nation building process. And sir, about the sequence of preferences. Sir, I have given IAS as the first preference because I think that will give me an opportunity to work in diverse sectors, which I really want to work in. For example, education, health, women empowerment, sanitation. So that is the reason for giving first preference to IAS. Sir, about IPS, so I feel that it is very important for the law and order to.
Well, that I understand. My question really was that
Yes,
with
sir.
your own personal background of having been a successful economist through your educational system, why is it you're preferring the police over the foreign service? Because obviously, I mean, serving the foreign service, the economic challenges or opportunities there are obvious. What do you find in the police that leads you to prefer it over the foreign service?
So I think personally, the kind of person I am better suited for the police service compared to the foreign services. In foreign services, it is a very coveted service, no doubt, and I would be extremely fortunate if I get a chance to join that. But I feel that my strengths, which are I'm able to understand the problems of the people. I'm very compassionate. I can understand the issues on ground, and I can connect with people. So I think I
So
will
you'd
be.
like to work with the public, and
Yes.
that you think you can do better in the
Yes.
police rather than the foreign service. Yes, that's a reasonable answer. I'd like to ask you to go back to the answer to the first question. You talked about some kind of civil services club.
Yes, sir.
What does that do?
Sir, in SRCC during my graduation years, I was a part of the National Service Scheme, and they used to do a variety of things. But I was involved in the literacy wing of the group. So we used to teach poor kids from the nearby areas who used to come to the college, and we used to teach them.
National Service Scheme. Do you know what the National Service Scheme was founded for? What is the purpose of setting up the National Service Scheme?
Yes, sir. So it was founded in 1969 in Gandhiji's centenary year, and the purpose was
At
to.
whose instance? Who was the person behind it?
I'm sorry, sir, I'm not aware of that.
Go ahead.
So the purpose was to give youth an exposure to the society and to develop this feeling of social service in them, and also to make them realize the kind of difficulties that people live in and to appreciate more of what they have.
Okay.
It is creditable that you have studied in one of the premier institutions of India. So also it is creditable that you have appeared and cleared up to the interview level, right? Not many people do that, so I think one would be proud of that. But now what we need to understand is, where did we go wrong in the interview? And the purpose of this interview is to hone your skills, to find out where things went wrong so that you can score better this time, right?
Yes, sir.
I think you faced the interview board, you were there,
Yes, sir.
so you are the best person to judge. One point which you said is that there was a lack of confidence, which I think now is made up in the sense you are quite confident. Was there anything other than this also, like they asked the question, as far as the knowledge about the subjects, you see, they're generally confined to two things. One is what you have written,
Yes, sir.
is your specialization, and secondly, what is going around you, the current affairs.
Yes, sir.
So if you analyze dispassionately, where exactly, other than confidence, did you feel that you could have done better and you didn't do that? So because you will work on that then.
So the other thing, as I was telling sir also the other day, till my last attempt, I felt that there was some lack in my understanding of certain topics. For example, I would just learn what an e-way bill is, but I wouldn't really understand the intent behind it. Like, what exactly is it doing on ground? How is it helping the system become more efficient? So I think I didn't used to understand a lot of things in the proper spirit of what their intent was. But I have been working on that for the past 1 year, and I think I have tried to cover that gap now.
I see that your background, your father was in the Indian Navy as one of the in the ranks,
Yes.
and he has risen to the level of an officer now, right? And did you, because you have been appearing for the last 3-4 years, did at any time did you think, I think I should diversify into something else also, and if this is not there, if this is not possible, did you? And if you did, what was the other sphere you thought of?
So apart from civil services,
Yeah.
because I am trying for the state civil service exam as well. Apart from that, sir, I think if this doesn't work out for me, I would like to join the civil service sector, the NGOs,
The
because
NGOs.
this is the sector that I really want to work in.
Okay, you have done a lot of preparation for this. If you are a civil servant, say you've given your first preference for the IAS, and what do you think are the 3 main challenges today the civil servants face, and what are how they should be, how they can be overcome? 3 main challenges today's civil servants face, because we have now emerging modern society.
Second, I take 30 seconds to think about it.
Please.
Thank you. So can you use?
It's really good.
Had my breakfast now.
So one thing that I think is with the changing times, there's a lot of evolution of technology and use of technology, and I don't think that a lot of civil servants are very well versed with the use of technology for various schemes. So secondly, I feel there's a need for specialization in civil services now, which is lacking given the kind of job it was supposed to be, to the generalized job. And thirdly, so I think there is a scarcity of funds in general, so maybe they're not able to do as much as they would want to do in certain sectors.
My last question is that as a civil servant, you see there is a big change in the political setups and taking place very fast. There are various ideologies in the country, and you find you are working under a central government with a different ideology, in a state government which has got different ideologies. And there are a lot of pressures civil servant faces from the politicians, from ground level to the highest level. How do you think those can be dealt by in positive manner by the civil servants?
So I think if the pressure is, if at all there is a pressure to do something illegal, I think the civil servant should have the courage to directly say no to that. And so what I feel is that no matter who it is, whether it is the civil servants or the political class, everybody wants to take the nation forward, and we may have different methods of doing that, but we're trying to achieve the same goal. So if there is some difference of opinion on how to achieve it, the civil servant can communicate better to the minister as to how what his idea of implementing a certain scheme is, and then maybe they can, with discussion and communication, maybe they can take that forward.
Okay, taking from what Mr. Chopra has said, we asked you to list out what are the 3 challenges that you will face as a civil servant. Tell me that what are the 3 challenges, I don't want to call them problems, but because in a way they are also problems, that are facing the country today?
I think the single most, the biggest challenge is poverty and inequality in the country. Then the level of education, the quality of education, and thirdly, I want to say gender inequality.
You said that already. Now tell me, an Indian got the Nobel this year, Abhijit Banerjee. And do you know anything about his work, or what it is on? It is actually
Yes.
on elimination of,
Yes, ma'am.
on alleviation of poverty and also inequality. So what got him the Nobel? What was so unique about it? And and what do you know about his work?
Yes, ma'am. Ma'am, Professor Abhijit Banerjee and the other people who got the
Yeah,
Nobel.
other two others, yeah.
Yes, ma'am. They work with the randomized controlled trials,
Yeah.
and what these trials are, they try to reduce the biases involved in order to understand if the effectiveness of an intervention. So, for example, if the government is providing, it comes up with certain scheme, so they want to understand whether the scheme is working or not. So what they do is they come up with two groups and they randomly allot these groups. So
Yes.
one is the control group and the other is the group with the intervention, so as to reduce the bias. And they use the empirical method to understand whether the policies are able to make an impact on alleviating poverty or not. And that is the
So
work.
what his conclusions? Are there any conclusions from this? Because after all, this is the methodology.
Yes, ma'am.
So what does he feel can be done to reduce equality and to also to eliminate poverty? Or alleviate it, that's it, eliminate it.
Yes, ma'am. Ma'am, one thing, I was listening to this lecture by him, and one thing he talks about is that we need to understand at the household level what challenges they are facing and why they react to certain intervention the way they do.
What
rather
challenges,
than
what challenges who is facing?
the
poor
household level people, the poor people at the household level, rather than focusing too much on the GDP and the macro figures. We need to go at the level of the people and understand their.
So what did he conclude?
I'm sorry, ma'am. I'm not.
Okay, do read it, because one of the things he said, put more money in the hands of the poor.
Yes, ma'am.
And there are various others. He's talked of health, he's talked of education and what can be done. So because you've done economics, this is a question that could really be asked. You could either read his two books, one is Hard Economics, Poor Economics,
Yes, ma'am. For hard times.
or the other one which is more recent, I've forgotten it, or you just read the transcript. He said it, he's clarified that very clearly.
Yes, ma'am.
And hence, he felt Narega scheme, that you put money in the hands of the poor.
Yes, ma'am.
There are other experiments which have shown that no, rather than money, you put an edible, they talked of dal.
Yes, ma'am.
And then he said that after all, and how money is spent, they've gone into it, that the poor person may not spend on immunization, but would go and spend on a doctor in an irrational type of treatment. So how do you do that? So government's role in that. So it's sort of, it's an interesting
Yes, ma'am.
You said you heard him speak. You heard him speak. You heard him speak, have you?
I'm sorry for
And you have heard him speak.
You have heard him speak.
on the recent state of economy.
Yeah. So another question they could ask you, because I know that looking at the background, is he's talked of redistribution of wealth.
Yes, ma'am.
There's a whole lot of issues, a question could come from that. And that could be, for example, will redistribution of wealth be a disincentive?
Yes,
He's been a great proponent of why have you reduced corporate tax?
yes, ma'am.
That gives more, it benefits the rich, but what does the poor get out of it? I mean, this is his way. You can always argue that, it can get
Yes, ma'am.
base per industry to create more jobs. So that's one point he said. The other question he talks is about immigration. Does it take away jobs? The third big key question he asks about artificial intelligence. Will it take away jobs, or is it something to celebrate? And he has his point of view. Someone may ask you, mainly because you're from the Delhi School of Economics and have an economics background. So that's just an adversity.
Thank you.
Nikita?
Yes, ma'am.
Nikita, you come from Haryana.
Yes, ma'am.
Now, Haryana had been facing a criticism that the child sex ratio has been declining. Is that still the case right now?
The girl, you mean the female sex ratio, advanced sex ratio?
Adverse sex ratio. The girl-child sex ratio.
Ma'am, recently, according to the very recent estimate, sex ratio at birth has actually increased from 832 in 2011 to 923 in 2019.
That's correct.
So the scheme launched by the government, that is the Beti Bachao Beti Padhao scheme, has been showing positive results.
All right. Now, apart from this is saving the girl child at birth, right? right? Now, once a girl child is born and she proceeds with her life, there's certain life chances that are not extended to her.
Yes.
So we are moving towards resolving the problem of missing girls to going towards unwanted girls.
Yes, ma'am.
Given these life chances, also one of the aspects is safety. Now, if I were to ask you, what 4 steps in your district, once you're posted, what 4 steps would you take to ensure women's safety?
Can I take 15 seconds? Ma'am, for women's safety, I think we need to focus on the issue from 2 levels. One should be the very stringent implementation of laws. So for that, we need strategies like sensitization of the police. So if something happens, the women can very confidently they can approach the police, and their issues must be heard in a very sensitive manner. Then, ma'am, we need to use technology. For example, we need to use LEDs so that to make sure there are no dark places left. We need to use CCTVs at various places so that a deterrence is created. Ma'am, apart from that, I think the other issue that we need to focus on is to change the mindset of the people, and that is something that is going to take a lot of time. So for that, we need to take this issue on a mission mode. So we need to sensitize the family, we need to sensitize the students in the classrooms, and we can do that only when we sensitize the teachers. So I think we need to focus on these 2 aspects to ensure women's safety.
And last 4.
So ma'am, 4 can be sensitization of police, use of technology, sensitization of people, so they are more aware of what the issues are. And ma'am, 4th can be the change in the judicial system so that the justice comes quickly, because I think that is what creates deterrence. If we bring in death penalty in the law, but the law takes forever to give justice, I don't think that creates a
That brings me
deterrence.
to my
Can I
second
quickly
question.
ask one very quick question? One is there any law that has been passed to take care of this problem? The adverse sex ratio.
I know about the schemes, but
No law,
legislation.
legislation.
Ma'am,
Which are-
PCPNDT was passed.
What's that?
Ma'am, Preconception and Prenatal Diagnostic Techniques Act.
Correct.
Okay,
Sorry, I just thought that could be a point also because.
So you said that death penalty is there, but it's not getting implemented. Do you think death penalty or capital punishment in itself is enough, as in for the heinous crimes that people commit? It is the capital punishment is the way. Should the rapist get capital punishment or death penalty? What's your take?
Ma'am, I'm in support of capital punishment for very heinous crimes, because I feel somewhere that creates a deterrence. But again, as I said earlier, there needs to be faster delivery of justice, because without that, the law is it's ineffective.
Justice delayed is justice
Justice
denied.
delayed.
Should it be as fast as in Hyderabad?
So I do not have enough data to comment that was not a valid encounter. But if it was a fake encounter, I'm not in support
Of
of
course not.
Thank you.
Yeah, I can see that you were the sponsorship head of Commerce Society in SRCC 2011-12. What was your exact role?
So my role was to get funds to sponsor
Which are
the
methods you used to arrange the funds?
So one thing was to tap the alumni base of our college because they generally contribute a lot to the fests. So the other thing was to identify the kind of firms that would want to appeal to the people who are coming to our fest. So that was the youth. So we contacted firms which were in the business of clothing or footwears or cosmetics and other electrical appliances, basically things which appeal to the youth, because such firms were usually interested in sponsoring. And the other thing we focused on was to tap the local businesses.
With your experience of sponsorship head, can you suggest any 3 things to Government of India to increase investment in the economy? Give me some out-of-box suggestions, which right now the government is not able to tap. Something new on which they need to focus upon, because we have seen that the investment rate is declining from so many years. What we are missing?
So one thing we're missing is that our laws are very complicated and an investor does not feel very safe investing in our country.
But in ease of doing business, we are really doing good.
We are trying to.
We've improved.
We have improved a lot.
So there's no policy certainty in India, so the laws keep on changing.
Like what?
So for example, in the Vodafone case, the government came up with the retrospective taxation.
That
So
was way back in 2011-12. Investments started declining after 2012.
so
Any suggestions which you want to give to increase investment in the economy?
So one thing has to be that we have to make our systems simpler. For example, all these forms that the investor needs to fill, we need to come up with one single form where they can get all the clearances.
That we already have single window clearance. Anything else? You can take some cue from the roles and responsibilities as the sponsorship head.
So we should tap more into the NRIs who can invest here because they belong to the country and they also want the nation
That's
to.
the one thing which I was expecting, NRIs. And other than this,
I'm sorry.
okay, have you heard this new term, thalinomics?
So I've heard about.
What is this
I mean, I read
thalinomics?
it.
Okay, so, and that's it.
I don't know. But I'm not any.
Okay then, thank you. So, Nikita, generally, you were impressive and you should do well. There are just a few points that we can mention. Of course, Ms. Rai had already during the
I've
interview
done your mind mentoring.
mentored you on the issues which are important and therefore, particularly for any college, they would be asked questions. And there's the latest Nobel Prize winner, and there's been a lot of discussion. So that she's told you about. But a few modulation nuances that I would suggest. For example, you said there should be a change in the judicial system. Now, what you need to say was judicial reforms.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So be careful about the words that you use because each of them has an impact.
Yes,
Now,
sir.
if you use the word change in the judicial system, you're going to get follow-up questions. What are the changes you want?
Yes.
How should the system change? Which is not what you meant in the first place.
Yes.
You meant there should be reforms in the judicial system. Again, you took a very firm stand on the question of death penalty. A death penalty is a matter which is a subject of considerable debate across the world.
Yes, sir.
And your answer appeared to me to be dictated more by emotion rather than rationale.
Yes, sir.
So you don't want to give me that impression.
Yes.
You can of course qualify it by saying that personally I feel that the death penalty is appropriate in the case of heinous crimes, but I understand
Yes, sir.
that this is an issue which has been subject to great debate, and we are not yet sure, which is the case. We are not yet sure how effective the death penalty has actually been in ensuring that such crimes do not recur, because it has not.
Yes, sir.
Because you are going to be a civil servant, you're not expected to be moved by emotion.
Yes.
You are what you will be expected to do even when you are in service. If somebody asks you to examine the pros and cons of abolishing the death penalty, what will you do? You will not say, well, it's a terrible thing and therefore should be done. That will not be your note. Your note will be that what has the previous experience shown? What has happened in such country and what has happened in another country? With the kind of social background in a particular area, what is the impact of the death penalty?
Yes.
And then you will come to your conclusion, isn't it?
Yes.
So then you must show indication that you are that sort of person.
Yes.
That you will be a sort of person who will be able to weigh the pros and cons of any issue without subjecting yourself to emotion. Because I am a woman, I see this happening to women, therefore they should be killed. No, that's not
We were discussing this on the way today. There
I'm all for
are
death
two sides of the
penalty,
coin.
So,
again,
your point again about uncertainty. Now, you make that point, the investment, then you give an example of 2011. It is also a case, that is certainly one major criticism, that rules are always changing and that deters prospective investors. Ki pata nahi kal kya hoga.
Yes, sir.
But there are much more concurrent rules, and you should be aware of those.
Yes, sir.
These are areas, obviously, being an economist, you're going to be questioned about.
Yes, sir.
So you should be aware of them. So you may say that you can always qualify your answer if you're not sure of it.
Yes, sir.
But when you make a definite answer, then you must be sure of it. You must be in complete control of your facts.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
I would also say that, when you're talking of investment, the state of the banks, how robust the financial institutions are, that plays a role. And also, as such, certain social factors which also scare, especially for foreign investors.
Yes, sir.
So this is something that you should, being an economist, you should have some control
Yes,
of
sir.
the idea of why is FDI not taking place in the way that it's wanted.
The solution to a problem starts when you first identify what is the problem. So in this case, you were able to identify that in the last interview, where was the pitfall? One was the confidence level and second was the knowledge level. I think confidence level has improved quite a bit. And the knowledge level, as I said earlier, they are a bit, coming from a good college, you have advantages and disadvantages. Disadvantages that everybody would expect you to have,
Expectations will be high.
that they will be high. So therefore, you need to work on that and know about all the systems and give good answers for that. Secondly, I had asked you the question about the three challenges faced by the civil servants now, and I'm glad that you identified the modern challenges like technology, etc., which normally earlier we were not saying. But then I threw a loaded question at you about the politicians. Okay, and I'm happy you batted it well, but maybe you could have done a more diplomatic thing,
Yes.
right? Because when you answer such questions, you have to be there with me to be diplomatic.
Yes, sir.
And third point is that whenever you ask for time, do it with a smile.
Yes, I was going to say. I don't say I want to
You
take-
must.
Can I just take
Yes, sir.
time?
You take time, but ask for it with a smile so that
Yes.
And secondly,
Asking for time itself is a good thing. To allow your
it's a good thing. It's a good thing. Secondly,
Don't do it too often.
don't do it too often, but yes, if you want, but do it with a smile so
And
it's all right.
cheerfully, so that
Yes.
And last but not the least, it's good to write down. But in service, you are supposed to think on your feet.
Right.
So when you take a pause, you think the points in your mind
Yeah.
and then come out with it. Because that writing down the whole interview breaks down, and then people start, their mind starts.
I'm just going to have one last word.
Yes.
A month ago, I was asked to be one of the interviewers in the Haryana Public Service Commission for direct entrance. And I was amazed at the number of people who asked for opinion on cups. Now, normally I don't know if it'll ask you, but if someone says you're from Haryana, what is your position on cups? Just be prepared with that.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you and all the
Thank
best.
you. All the best.
When is your interview?
Sir, 19th of February.
All the
yes.
best, and I think
But
All
you,
the best,
you're in a good state of preparation.
and you have a very good personality, you're intelligent, so there are many plus points.
Thank
And
you.
give it your best, and if it doesn't come, life doesn't stop at the civil service. There are so many things. Okay?
Thank you.